My name's Tyler. I'm 29 and I live alone in a quiet little town outside of Flagstaff, Arizona. I work full-time as a mechanic at a local shop. Honest work, nothing fancy, but I take pride in it. About 2 years ago, I bought a small fixer-upper on a peaceful street. Took out a mortgage I'm still chipping away at, but the place is mine. Neighbors wave, lawns are mowed, folks look out for one another. Right across the street lives Madison and her husband Jake. No kids, both in their early 30s. From the outside, they looked like your typical couple. Saturday barbecues, yard work, smiles in the driveway. Jake and I would occasionally catch a game, drink a couple beers, nothing deep. Madison? She was always friendly, easy to talk to. Our chats were light, neighborly, no lines crossed, nothing ever weird. But over the last few months, something changed. Madison started to carry this weight. You could see it in the way she walked, the way she looked past you instead of at you. Whenever I bumped into her, grabbing the mail, taking out the trash, she'd mention Jake working late, being distant. At first, it sounded like regular married stuff. But slowly, it got heavier. She said he was cold, distant, always on his phone. Said she found messages from names she didn't recognize. I listened. I never pried. Never offered more than a nod or a quiet, "That sucks." It wasn't my business, and I sure didn't want to get pulled into something I had no part in. But then came that night. I'd just pulled into my driveway from a late shift. She was coming back from a walk. Her shoulders were slumped, face pale in the porch light. "You okay?" I asked. She exhaled hard. He said he had to stay late again, didn't even bring his laptop. I wasn't thinking. I wasn't trying to be funny. It just came out. "Maybe you should just leave him." It hung in the air like a stone. I expected a laugh, maybe an eye roll, something. But she just looked at me. Not shocked. Not even mad. Just still. "Yeah, maybe I should," she said softly. Then she turned and walked away. No goodbye, no smile. Just disappeared into the night, leaving me standing there like I'd dropped a match in a dry field. The whole night, I couldn't shake it. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe she was tired. Maybe I'd read it wrong. But deep down, I knew that look in her eyes meant something had snapped. The next evening, around 9:30, I was halfway through a cold beer when someone knocked at the door. I opened it. And there she was. Madison. Hair pulled back, hoodie on, 2 duffel bags at her feet. Her eyes were bloodshot but clear, steady. "I filed the papers this morning," she said. "I can't stay in that house another night." I blinked. "Jake's still there?" "Yeah, but I'm not. Not anymore." She glanced past me, into the house. "Can I come in?" And right there, on my front porch with crickets chirping and Monday Night Football in the background, my world tilted. I stepped aside, letting Madison in without another word. She dropped her bags next to the couch and sank into it like she'd done it 100 times before. Like this wasn't completely upside down. Like we were two people just living some alternate version of reality. "I'll crash here tonight, just the couch. I need air," she said, pulling the throw blanket over herself. "Yeah, sure. Whatever you need," I mumbled, still frozen. She closed her eyes and was out within minutes. I stood there, staring at her. Then I grabbed my phone, stepped out onto the porch, and called Jake. He picked up on the second ring. "Yo." "Hey man, can we talk?" There was a beat of silence. "Yeah. What's going on?" "I'm outside, didn't want to do this over the phone. Can I come over for a bit?" He said sure. I grabbed a couple of beers from the fridge, threw on a hoodie, and walked across the street with my pulse in my throat. I hadn't done anything wrong, but I felt like I was carrying a live wire. Jake answered in sweats and socks, eyes tired, expression unreadable. He stepped aside and I handed him a beer. We ended up sitting on his back porch, the night buzzing with the hum of crickets and silence. "I just want to say this straight," I started. "I'm not trying to be in the middle of anything. I'm only telling you this because I think you deserve to hear it from me." Jake stared ahead, still and calm. I continued. Madison's at my place. She showed up tonight with her bags. Said she filed for divorce this morning. Said she couldn't stay here another night. He took a long pull from his beer. Still quiet. I didn't invite her. I didn't encourage it. I swear. There's nothing going on between us. Never has been. Finally, he nodded. She told me she was filing. I figured she'd go to her sister's or a friend's place. Guess she didn't. Another pause. I appreciate you telling me, he said. I know you, Tyler. You're solid. You're not the type to stir things up. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. He leaned back in his chair, his voice distant. Truth is, man, I'm tired. I've been trying to keep this marriage going on fumes. Doesn't matter what I do, she's unhappy. When I worked less, she said I wasn't motivated. Now I work late, and she thinks I'm cheating. She said she found some messages. He gave a tired laugh. A client. I detail cars on weekends. Woman messaged about an appointment. That's it. But Madison, she made it into something else. And honestly, I stopped trying to convince her a while ago. You get to a point where defending yourself just drains the life out of you. I nodded. I get it. She's emotional, he said. Always has been. It's not a bad thing, but it's hard to keep up. The ups are great, but the lows, they suck the air out of the room. We sat there for a while, drinking quietly. No big speeches, just silence and shared exhaustion. I'll let her stay a few days, I finally said. Told her she can use the couch until she figures out her next move. My folks are visiting next week anyway. I'll need the space. Jake nodded again. It's fine. Honestly, I just want peace. I hope she finds it, wherever she goes. Before I left, I turned to him. I really hope this doesn't mess up what we have, man. Jake looked at me, dead serious. Tyler, you're probably the only person on this street I actually trust. If she's with you, I know she's safe. I know you won't cross any lines. That hit me harder than I expected. We sat for another hour, talking about dumb things, work stories, a flat tire from last month, something about a raccoon that got into his garbage. We even laughed a little. It felt like real friendship again. No tension. Just two guys trying to make sense of the mess. When I got home, Madison was still asleep. Curled up in the same spot, phone face down beside her, that blanket clutched to her like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. I walked past her quietly and into the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and just stood there. This was real. She'd left. And she'd come here. To me. I wasn't proud of it. I wasn't gloating. If anything, I felt responsible. Not for their problems, but for the timing. That dumb line, maybe you should just leave him. It wasn't meant to land, but it did. And now here we were. And I had no idea what would come next. The next morning, I woke up early. The kind of early that doesn't feel natural, like your mind knows something's different. For a second, I thought maybe I dreamed the whole thing. But when I walked into the living room, there she was, Madison, sitting on the couch in the hoodie she'd arrived in, hands wrapped around a mug of coffee, legs tucked beneath her. She looked over her shoulder and gave me a tired smile. Morning. Hey, I replied, rubbing the sleep from my eyes. You sleep okay? Better than I have in weeks, she said quietly. I poured myself a coffee and sat in the armchair across from her. There was a silence between us, not awkward, but heavy. We both felt it, like there was a conversation hovering in the air, waiting to be had. I sipped my coffee and finally said it. Can I ask you something? She nodded slowly. Why me? Madison blinked. What do you mean? I mean, you have family, friends. You could have gone anywhere. Why my house? She looked down at her mug for a long moment, then said, Because I trust you. You've always been real with me. You never judged. And yesterday, when you said that thing, maybe you should just leave him. It hit different. It felt like, maybe I needed someone to say what I'd been thinking all along. I leaned back. That was a dumb comment. I didn't mean it like that. I know. But it made me look around and ask myself what the hell I was still doing in that house. I was living with someone who barely saw me, who hadn't touched me in weeks, who came home later and later and said less and less. Madison, I said carefully, do you think maybe Jake wasn't cheating? Maybe he really was just working? She didn't answer right away. He's never home, Tyler. He comes in late, eats in silence, sleeps facing the wall. There's no connection, no effort, just routine. And I couldn't breathe in that anymore. But what if he was trying, in his own way? I asked gently. She shook her head. I don't want to talk about him anymore. I nodded. I just don't want you to make a leap off a cliff that maybe didn't need jumping from. She stared out the window. Her voice dropped. I already jumped. That was the end of that. We sat in silence again, both sipping coffee like it was the only thing holding the morning together. After a while, I cleared my throat. You can stay for a few days, a week, tops. My folks are flying in next weekend and I'll need the space. Understood, she said. I'll start looking for a short-term rental today. I left for work a bit later than usual, didn't say much more. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw her standing in the doorway watching me leave. Arms crossed. Distant. Not sad. Not angry. Just untethered. That day at the shop, I couldn't focus. Every oil change felt like I was moving in slow motion. I kept thinking about her, about Jake, about how a simple line could lead to someone packing their life into 2 bags and crossing a street they'd lived on for years. That evening when I got home, she wasn't on the couch. For a second, I panicked, thought maybe she'd left without a word. But then I saw her through the back window, sitting on the patio with her phone in hand. I walked outside. Everything okay? I asked. Yeah, she said. Been calling around. Found a couple options, but they're either too expensive or already booked. Don't rush, I said, sitting down next to her on the porch steps. You've got a few more days. It's fine. She glanced at me. Thanks, Tyler. For not freaking out. For letting me crash here. I know it's not your problem. It kind of is now, I said, half smiling. But it's okay. She gave a soft laugh. The first one I'd heard since she showed up. It was small, but it felt like sunlight breaking through a long gray sky. Later that night, I got a text from Jake. Thanks again for being up front. I'm not mad. Honestly, I'm relieved. I hope she finds whatever peace she's been chasing. I read it twice. It felt final, like a quiet door clicking shut. I didn't reply right away. Maybe this wouldn't go back to normal. Maybe it never could. By the 3rd day, a strange kind of rhythm had settled in. Madison woke up early, made coffee, cleaned up after herself, and stayed mostly quiet. She didn't try to insert herself into my day. She didn't act like she lived there. More like someone trying hard not to overstay. When I came home from the shop around 6, she was usually reading, scrolling on her phone, or cooking something simple. Not for me. Not to impress. Just to feel useful, I think. We kept things neutral. No talk about Jake. No talk about what came next. But the silence wasn't empty. It was full of things we weren't saying. And even though there was no tension, no flirting, no lines being crossed, it still felt like I was standing on a very thin edge. One evening, we were out on the porch. She was sipping chamomile tea, gently stirring the spoon even though it had already cooled. The sky was dark. Porch lights flickered down the street, the kind of quiet that makes you notice everything. You ever feel like your life is just happening? She asked, not looking at me. Like you're not really in it. You're just watching someone else go through the motions, cleaning, working, smiling when you're supposed to. But none of it feels real. I thought about that for a second. Yeah, I said slowly. When I first moved here, I'd wake up and think, is this it? Just me, a mortgage, and leftovers? That made her smile faintly. At least you built something. You chose this house. You work hard. You make decisions. You don't have to ask someone if it's okay to buy a lamp or take a weekend off. You could have had that too, I said. I thought I did, she replied, voice soft. But it wasn't real. Or maybe I just convinced myself it was because the alternative was scarier. She paused and looked at me, her eyes tired but steady. I know I showed up out of nowhere, and I've probably turned your whole life sideways. But it's just starting to hit me that I actually left, and there's no going back. You sure about that? I asked quietly. I'm sure I don't want to live the rest of my life hoping someone might change. We sat there in silence again, just the hum of night sounds around us. It wasn't awkward. It was respectful, like neither of us wanted to fill the space with something unnecessary. Then I said, "You know Jake doesn't hate you." She looked at me, surprised. He told me he's tired, burned out, but he also said he hopes you find peace. Her expression shifted. She looked down at her tea. He used to say that to me too. I hope you find peace. I never knew if it was out of love or just a way to end the conversation. I didn't respond. Maybe because a part of me thought she might be right. The next few days passed like that. Quiet. Me going to work, her trying to stay busy without getting in the way. She bought groceries once, insisted on paying for them. I told her she didn't need to, but she said it made her feel better, like she wasn't just hiding out. She was careful. She never went into my bedroom. Never stayed up late talking. Never tried to stretch the situation into something it wasn't. There was no romance, no secrets, just two people sharing space while life recalculated. Then, on the 6th day, I came home and found her folding laundry in the living room. Her duffel bag was open, a neat pile of clothes beside it. She looked up and gave me a tired but real smile. I found a place, she said. Short-term lease, month to month. It's tiny, but it works. That's good, I said. I'm moving out tomorrow. My cousin's coming with his truck in the morning. I stood there for a second, unsure what to say. Thank you, she said before I could find any words. For everything. For not asking questions. For giving me space. You didn't have to do that. You don't need to thank me, I said, but I appreciated it all the same. She hesitated. I know this whole thing started because of something you said, and maybe it stuck with me more than it should have. But don't blame yourself, okay? I gave a short, dry laugh. Too late. Seriously, she said. You didn't break us. We were already broken. That night we didn't say much. She went to bed early. I stayed up watching a basketball game I wasn't really watching. My mind was restless. Part of me was relieved. Things would go back to normal. No more second guessing. No more blurred lines. But another part of me felt hollow. Like something had entered my life for a brief moment, turned everything upside down, and was now quietly walking out the door. The next morning, I helped Madison carry her bags out to the curb. Her cousin, a tall guy with a Tacoma and a quiet nod, loaded the last box into the truck bed while she adjusted her jacket and pulled her hair back into a ponytail. She looked ready. Not nervous, not sentimental, just steady. She turned to me with that same calm I'd seen the night she arrived, like someone who'd already cried all the tears and was past the storm now. Thanks again, Tyler, she said. I nodded. You gonna be okay? I think so. One day at a time, right? She hugged me. It wasn't long or dramatic. Just one of those hugs that means thank you, I needed this. I'll remember it. And then she climbed into the truck. As they pulled away, I stood in the driveway for a few extra minutes, hands in my hoodie pocket, watching the taillights fade down the street. Then I went back inside. The house was quiet again. Too quiet. I looked over at the couch she'd slept on. The throw blanket was still folded the way she'd left it. I didn't touch it. For days, I just left it there. Not because I was sentimental exactly. More like I didn't want to erase the evidence too fast, like the house itself needed a second to adjust. That night, Jake came by. No text, no heads up. Just a single knock on the door before pushing open the screen and stepping onto the porch, like he always used to. You busy? he asked. Nah, I said, moving aside. Have a seat. He sat on the steps next to me. We didn't talk at first. Just sat there, watching the sunset spill gold over the rooftops. She's gone? He asked eventually. Yeah. Found her own place. Month-to-month lease. He nodded slowly. So I guess it's real now. I didn't say anything. I always thought if she left, I'd be pissed, he continued. But I'm not. I just feel numb. Like something ended a long time ago, and we've just been pretending ever since. I looked over at him. He wasn't sad, exactly, just hollow in a way I understood too well. I'm not mad she came here, he added. Honestly, I'm glad it was you. Anyone else, and I might have lost it. But you've always been straight with me. I respect that. Thanks, man. He cracked open a beer, offered me one. We sat in silence, watching the sun slide behind the mountains. You think it was always gonna end like this? He asked. I don't know, I said. I think she made her choice a while ago. She just didn't know how to say it. Yeah, Jake said. I think I made mine too. I just didn't admit it out loud. He took a long sip of beer and let out a sigh that sounded years old. You'll be okay, I told him. I will. Maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. I mean, I'm still young. I've got time to figure stuff out. We clinked our bottles. Just two guys trying to navigate the quiet after a storm. Over the next few weeks, the neighborhood settled back into its usual pace. Kids rode bikes down the street again. Sprinklers ticked in the evening. And the porch across the street, Madison's old house, looked lived in, but quieter. Jake got a dog, a scrappy little rescue mutt he named Milo. I saw him out in the yard some mornings, tossing a ball, Milo chasing it with full-body joy. Jake and I still talked, but less than before. More space between us now. Not cold, just cautious. We'd both walked a line, even if neither of us meant to. As for Madison, I didn't hear from her. No texts, no calls, no quiet visits. She was just gone. She'd said what she needed to say. She got out. She didn't look back. And weirdly, I didn't blame her. Some people come into your life like that. Unexpected, heavy, and then gone before you can even name what it was. She didn't owe me anything, and I didn't expect anything either. But every now and then, I'd catch myself glancing at that couch. At the folded blanket. At the empty space where something had briefly existed. Not love, not romance, just impact. It's been 2 months since Madison left. The morning she moved out is still sharp in my mind. She stood by the door, cousin's truck rumbling at the curb, duffel bags already loaded. She wasn't crying, wasn't dramatic, just calm, settled, like someone who knew this was goodbye and didn't need to make it anything more. She hugged me once, quick, firm. Thank you, Tyler, she said. I mean it. I just nodded. I hope it all works out for you. She smiled one last time, climbed into the truck, and was gone. The house felt bigger that night. Not better. Just emptier. I found myself walking past the couch out of habit. Still glanced at the throw blanket she used. Still half folded. I didn't touch it right away. Maybe I was giving it space. Maybe I was giving myself space. I don't really know. A week later, Jake and I started talking again. Not like before, not like nothing had happened, but better than I expected. We didn't dance around it. We talked about it. One evening, he stopped by with a six-pack and said, "So, what do you think? Was it always going to end that way?" I shrugged. Maybe. I think she made up her mind before I ever said anything. He nodded slowly. Yeah. I think I made mine too. I just never had the guts to say it out loud. They finalized the divorce quietly. No court fights. No big public unraveling. Just paperwork. Signatures. Silence. Jake stayed in the house. He fixed up the garage, got a new grill, started detailing cars full-time again. Milo, the mutt he adopted, became a fixture on the street, always wagging, always covered in dust. Madison? I never saw her again. After that first month-to-month rental, she vanished from the neighborhood. No messages, no attempt to reconnect. And honestly, I didn't reach out either. We had no unfinished business, no promises, no apology owed. She came into my life like a wind through an open door. Sudden, chaotic, and then gone before I knew what to name it. She needed a place to breathe. I had it. That was all. And me? I went back to my routines. Work at the garage, grocery runs, Saturday morning lawn care. I finally started building the deck I'd been putting off for a year. Something about driving nails into wood felt good. Like progress. But even though things went back to normal, they didn't feel the same. Because I changed. I became more careful with my words. I learned how easy it is to be a trigger in someone else's unraveling. One throwaway line, maybe you should just leave him, turned out to be the last nudge she needed. I didn't break their marriage, but maybe I pressed the final button on something already blinking red. I don't carry guilt. Not exactly. But I carry the memory. The memory of a couch that became shelter. A porch conversation that held more truth than either of us knew. A neighbor who needed escape and found it not in romance, not in betrayal, but in quiet, in space, in safety. It's a story I don't tell often. Not because it's a secret, but because it's one of those stories that changes the way you look at things. The kind you carry with you, not to repeat, but to remember. So yeah, that was the time I made a joke I didn't mean. And the next day, my neighbor knocked on my door with 2 bags and a heart full of chaos. She stayed for a week. And then she left. And I stayed right where I was. Still me. But not quite the same.